focusing on social capital, it's important to understand that the world we live in 2021 is radically changed compared to the world even 100 years ago. The changes are radical. The people would consider many things that we grew up with as throwaways, magic. Now, and there are many examples one can provide. In addition, our species is a relatively young species, and the years we've had in terms of organizing ourselves into civilized societies is a very small percentage of the overall timeline in which our species has been on the planet. And things have really accelerated in the last 400 years because of something called the Enlightenment. And I was a science geek and didn't learn a lot about some aspects of history until I was later, as aged later. But the Enlightenment is a very important thing to understand the opportunities you're talking about now, because they were coming out of the Dark Ages. And in different European countries in the 1700s, and it spilled over and had major influences on the birth of the American, democratic and capitalist society. Came from the Enlightenment, and they were able to supercharge innovation in a very relatively rapid amount of time. And we're still riding that wave, and yet we have to deal with these huge backstories, these huge historical realities that we want to just go away, but they don't go away, and they involve social capital, and they involve issues like race and gender and religion and the remnants of colonial histories in countries all over the world, and highly skewed proportions in terms of income and other measures of economic equity. Definitely. So when you get into social capital, you're going into a very, very multidimensional, emotional, burned into our DNA as humans kind of issue set.
Yes, sir.
And one of the values of sustainability is if it's done using system science approaches, and perhaps we can do another podcast down the road where we would just do an intro to system science, which would be, and we're going to be invoking some of that here, but where we can really unpack it more systematically, and then maybe use an example again. But so with social capital, there are many opportunities, but we have these very, very complex challenges. And with women didn't even, a lot of folks aren't even aware. In the United States, women didn't even get the right to vote until the 1920s, and they had to fight like hell for it. And in many, there are countries still where they don't have the right to vote. There are a lot of people assume that African Americans were freed by the 15th Amendment during the Civil War and immediately after, and anyone who knows their history knows that was a paper. It was a great effort at the time. It was a symbolically very important effort, but functionally, quote, equal treatment of the social capital we know as African Americans in North America, United States, didn't really begin to reach its potential until two different civil rights acts in 1964 and I believe 65 in the United States, where the federal government took a more urgent approach towards the almost century scale continued discrimination that was particularly prominent in the South, the Jim Crow laws. And for those of you who don't know about Jim Crow, just Google search that now and go into some serious sources. And it was amazing if you were a black person in this country long after you were freed by the 15th Amendment. And so that's just one example. We can choose any number of other racial groups. We can choose other religious groups. Okay. So one of the things that's very, exciting to many people now is the degree to which we're unpacking these literally centuries-old challenges. The slave trade to the New World was a phenomenal economic powerhouse. Countless people made, incredible fortunes off of the slave trade, and this business existed, as we know it, as shipping African Americans across the Atlantic Ocean from, South America all the way up to at least northern the east coast of the United States.
Yes, sir.
Now, and before the United States existed, this was tens of millions of African Americans were brought here and used as property by people who had no claim to ownership other than that they subdued them. And so this was not only to the U.S. It was slavery has been around for millennia, and in different forms. And so the fact that we are now at this point in time beginning to see the frictional resistance to going further to try to solve these multi-hundred-year scale problems is not to be surprised.
Yes, sir.
Let me rephrase that. It shouldn't surprise us. This is the frictional, the rise of nationalism in different countries, and the continued resilience of bigotry and racism, and the way that can be programmed for nationalist political movements. Well, this is a time-honored skill. This has been deployed, for millennia in different societies. But the fact that we're addressing it more openly now, and that we do have frictional sparks flying, that's evidence that we're actually not ignoring it, and we're trying to go at it. Now, you're going to need to have improved economic and social equity by any measure in order to better manage your environment.
Yes, sir.
So improving the conditions of the social assets in a system is going to lighten the pull on natural capital that makes that system possible, and there's a variety of interesting others, all kinds of initiatives and projects and success stories of this actually cascades into economic capital.
Yes, sir.
So you can make money by doing good. You can make profits by doing good.
Yes, sir.
You can have a happier workforce where they don't have to worry about being black or any other color or any race A versus
religion,
race B, etc.,
gender,
or
anything.
any gender choice.
Yes, sir.
And there's an alignment of these three spheres that we're beginning to actually crack into.
Yep.
And there's a lot of pushback still. It's very complex, and we're uncovering, multi-hundred-year things here.
Yes, sir.
Often. But so, this is something that can be discussed in far greater detail, but hopefully that's a start.
Oh, that's perfect.